What's up guys, it's Sean and welcome back to the iherng podcast. And this episode, I had to get clearance for it because last weekend I was doing this live session with Mr. Faizul Rizwan, the CEO of Far Capital, which is the property investment company that I buy properties from. My last 3 to 4 purchases was from them, and it's always a lot of questions on why them, on why can't you just buy your own and things like that. So bi-weekly now they have this show or this program called Battle Royale, where basically they have a targeted location and they will just group all the relevant projects together to really see which project is undervalued, is underpriced for own stay purposes, and which are the projects that we should buy or we should aim to buy because of the data involved. And for this particular episode, they kind of tackled the most complicated address in my opinion, which is the North Kiara, Mont Kiara, Tuta North and Tuta Mas area. Basically, they just jumble up into one segment because developers will try to sell you Mont Kiara, but they cannot, so they brand themselves. Otherwise, just like all the Puchong South, Bangsa South, like all this kind of thing to kind of blur the lines. And as a result of that, a lot of buyers are carried by it, therefore paying Puchong price but not getting Puchong address, paying for Mont Kiara price but not really the effect of it. So this is just me attempting to really break down of what I learned. First, before we buy any properties, right, we gotta know the location inside out. This is what they did.
Basically, looking at this map, we actually have Jalan Tuta, which is now actually known as Jalan Tunku Abdul Halim, which will bring you into Publica. Then this is actually Tutamas area lah, where we have the Mitek Matre for now, and also one of our mega developments that's coming in, which is KL Metropolis. And then we have a tube that's actually separated our North Kerala, which is formerly known as Segambut Dalam lah. Now they are known as North Kerala because they're actually at the north side of the Mont Kiara. That's why people say I stay in Mont Kiara, but yeah, you are quite close. The name also very close, but actually we are not. Okay. And then we have Segambut. They actually name it as Duta North. Also use the same concept lah. Okay, to me. So actually I stay also near to Duta Mas lah. Yeah, but okay. Yeah, in Segambut we have actually Sungai Kero over here. Actually, within the inner road, they will segregate these 3 jalan. Actually, they are considered interconnected. This is actually the inner road. You can see this is the fork road that will separate. Go to this side, you go to North Kiara. To the other, on your right side, you go to Pintasan Segambut, which will lead you to Segambut area. When I go through a lot of ads, the center of gravity when people are advertising for the development they are going, actually they are saying you can go to Publica. So you see, even in Alex, it's actually in the North Kiara. They are also advertising it, the practice address, surrounded by practice address of Tutamas and Mont Kiara. We have Savio, which is actually at Segambut. One of their major landmark, they're labeling Mitek, Matre, Publica, Solaris, Mont Kiara. Instead of saying I am from Segambut. Why we actually talk about Mega Diamond, the booster. Have you guys known about like TRX? TRX, when TRX opened up, right, a lot of people went to it. Then it's actually our financial hubs. So we have a lot of banks, buildings over there, creating a lot of job opportunities. That's why last time when we do Malguri, we talk about job opportunities that connected to mega development. So this KL Metropolis is going to be one of the booster we are looking over for this area. This is KL Metropolis. We have different elements considering. We have this is Mita and Matre that actually already operated where you guys go for Mata Fair, and also for government agencies more on the investment part where they park their offices over here. So we have other elements. We have Mat 1, which is actually the service resident. This is the Solaris Spa. Then depan you akan sampai Publica lah. This is actually Mat 5, going to be mixed developments of offices, tower, and also malls and also hotels. And yeah, people talk about Naza Tower over here, right? So Naza Tower is actually will be the Mat 3. One of the booster of the work that we're talking about is the Mat A. This is one of the Grade A corporate office tower. So I talk about the Mat 5, This is going to be mixed development, comparing 9 acres of land. Where if you talk about Hyatt Regency Hotel, if you pass through this, you can see they're actually putting out the Hyatt Regency punya signboard. The other booster, other than working job opportunity spot that we're actually having here is actually Dutamas, which going to be near towards Fidelwood site. So this is going to bring all and connect all the area like TRX, KLCC, or even to Kuasa Damansara.
And the best part about this sharing session would be Mr. Faisal sharing his personal learning where he formulated into these 7 criterias program. Within you have the median price comparison, the new versus old, the tier system and things like that, which he gets criticized a lot. And personally, after I visit so many projects, wondering how come why one location which is 5 minutes away from another, right? How come they will perform so differently? For example, like Puchong and Bukit Jalil. It's the same, Bandar Utama, then TTDI, then Wong Kiara. Very close, wow. And in this case, the classic one would be Segambut and then Wong Kiara. Technically, it's the same road, technically, right? But how come they will have different behaviors and things like that? He formulated this tier system where in his company, during research, he will divide all these addresses into tiers. Some addresses will be tier 1, some addresses will be tier 2. It doesn't mean that you are in tier 1 then you are better, you are in tier 2 then you are in better. It doesn't mean that way. It just means, I think he explains better here, but it's very crucial during investment.
Every property is either located in tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3. So Dutamas is part of tier 1. Your Segambut site is basically part of tier 2. Even though it's just next to each other, but tier 1 price point and the mentality of the people who stay there is very different compared to the people staying in tier 2. I got asked this question last week, right, during our property tour, right? Tier 1 is whereby you got expats staying there. You got Japanese, you got Korean, you got Angmo. All tier 1 area has got expats. So your Dutamas, Mount Kiara, Hartamas, TRX, Bukit Bintang, KLCC, Bangsa South, Desa Park City, these are all part of tier 1. Tier 2 is where your middle upper class local, people like iherng, people, would normally want to stay. When they have money, they will stay there. So they don't like to stay in Angmo area because, everything is overpriced here. So, and then I see a comment, rich versus poor, right? No, it's not true. The people in tier 1 and people in tier 2 basically buy the same value of property. Kota Damansara, as of today, is 800 to about 1,000 ringgit per square foot. It's still tier 2. Mount Kiara, you can still buy things at below 800 ringgit per square foot, but it is still tier 1. The difference here in tier 1 versus tier 2, and tier 3 is basically your bit more ulu side, whereby you can still find landed property below 500,000. So these are tier 3. So tier 1 and tier 2 normally, property price, dengar betul guys, the tier 1, tier 2, normally property price is the same per square foot. The difference here is that in tier 1, there's no limit in rental. In tier 2, there's always a limit in rental. So I'll give you an example. TTDI is next to Mount Kiara, is next to Bangsa. Yet TTDI is tier 2. Mount Kiara, Bangsa is tier 1. Now guys, I'm going to ask you a question. If you think paying 25 ringgit for a nasi lemak is expensive, you're not staying in tier 1 area. It's as simple as that. In tier 1, there's no mentality as something which is too cheap or too expensive. There's just things. Okay? In Bangsa, a 30, 40 ringgit nasi lemak, people don't bat an eyelid. In Mount Kiara, it's the same. But you try to sell a 30 ringgit nasi lemak in TTDI restaurant, not going to last very long, I guess. So just the difference is the mentality of the people in there spending money. Which is why, for example, in Bangsa, you can actually rent landed property, I guess, bungalow. My mentor has a couple of these, and they are renting at 60,000 per month. 60,000 ringgit to rent a bungalow kat Bangsa. Okay? Now, is this logical to you guys? Tak logic, right? 60,000 ringgit to rent a bungalow dekat Bangsa. And he owns multiple of such property. In Mount Kiara, there's a bunch of bungalows and landed property that can be rented. Superlink dekat sini is 15,000 ringgit. Superlink, not even family, not even bungalow. 15,000 ringgit. Bungalow can rent all the way to 25 and 30,000. So that's the difference between tier 1. You go to TTDI, you try to rent property above 10,000, people say you crazy. Cheesy, that's the difference between tier 1, tier 2. So which is why Dutamas is not the same as your North Kiara. It's not the same as Duta North. So all these Sentul, Stapa, these are basically part of tier 2. Shah Alam is part of tier 2. Bangi part of tier 2. So anything which the local like to go and stay the moment they hit middle class, they will basically go and stay in this place called Tier 2.
After we determine whether the location is really tier 1 or tier 2, that allows us to really gauge what's the median price, and that will determine what's the alternative of what's the target audience for our tenants, right? We really got to know who are we renting to, because that will determine the value of rent that we're going to get. And part of his criteria is also he shared multiple rental options, where you can either go long term or short term, or by room or by head. It depends on how you want to do things. In this particular session, the finding was amazing. So first of all, shout out to the research team. I think that is the main criteria. I still remember when I was signing up, I was a bit upset when they were sharing so much during the session, because we used to pay a lot of money just to have access to all this information, but now he is putting things out there and he is willing to share with people like me, which is cool. That's why I decided to just make this, right? Because it's a hack, it's a form of concentrated knowledge where only a person that has invested for a very long time, or who have really witnessed property market for a very long time, obsessively only get to come out with all these findings. That's why I really learned a lot during the session. And here he correlates rental options again back to the tier system, back to the location and things like that.
If you want to buy property for investment, you need to have minimum 2 rental strategy that can get you to break even. If you're talking about, for example, maturity point, means you are buying something today at a negative cash flow, but there might be an MRT ataupun officers coming along to the point, it will help increase the demand and the property value.
Another point he mentioned within the session will be the difference between buying old projects and new projects. Most of the time when I go through all my DMs, the questions is always about this, like how do I get the right median price? For example, in OUG, there will be a lot of old structures or old homes, but I'm buying a new project. Do I compare them the same? Technically, yes and no. So we will need to fix like what's the average price for new, what's the average price of old, and this also depends on the specifications on the building, because as you mentioned before, in apartments you can't really do a lot of renovation to the design layout or facade and things like that. And the mindset of people buying old and buying new is also different. The mindset of tenants that are renting will also have preference between new and old. This is his point of view on it.
Now, if you are looking at the older properties, there's only 2 signs. Number one, you are on a budget and you just want to buy something cheap, which is why you are looking at the older property. Again, there's nothing wrong. But typically, people who basically look for the older property are people who are a little bit more on a budget. So they look at the numbers and the dollars and cents very, very clearly. So which is why you see today, from an asking price point of view, for old property, it's very hard for the non-Dutamas area to actually breach above 500 ringgit per square foot, especially properties that is already completed before 2010. So that's our definition of old. Any property that was completed 5 years ago and after that is considered as new property in the segment. And from a facility point of view, they are different. From a spec point of view, they are different. Rental point of view is also very different. Long story short, I guess, I'm going to give you the summary. Do you know how to make money for sure? You are buying a new property at a price point of similar to what the old property is selling. Why do I say you confirm me money? Because when your property is completed, let's say, for example, right, you look at this property right today, 500,000 ringgit, right? You buy a new property, 3-bedroom, 500,000 ringgit. Old property, 500,000 ringgit. I can tell you, guys, with absolute certainty, no one who's going to rent from you 5 years from now will prefer old property at the same price point. They will go for the older property compared to the new. I wouldn't say no one now. I would say 95% would have that preference. So if you can buy a new car by the same price point as the old car, it becomes a no-brainer decision, right? But is it easy to go and find a new property selling at the old property price point? It's also next to impossible.
So on the next slide, we have is the summary table that's we have concluded for the old property in the Dutamas and the Pretender area. Just to clarify, the data is collected by June 2024.
So guys, I want you to monitor these 2 numbers right very carefully, which is why we properly define the area of Dutamas and the Pretender. Look at it properly. What is the average transacted per square foot? In non-Dutamas, today it stands at 538 ringgit per square foot. And when you compare to the prime portion of Dutamas, it's 818 ringgit per square foot. Guys, that's a whopping of 50% difference from 540 to 820 ringgit per square foot. This is the difference between tier 1 versus tier 2, right? And I'm talking about old property. Move on to the next one. When you compare new property, the difference is again comparable. Today, when you compare to the non-Dutamas side of new property completed less than 5 years ago, right? You are looking at about 641 ringgit per square foot. And when you look at the Dutama side, right, it hovers at about 1,072 ringgit per square foot. That's the difference between proper Dutama and the pretenders. The number of people who are willing to pay 1,000 ringgit per square foot, 800 ringgit per square foot in sub-sale, 1,000 ringgit per square foot in primary market, it's just at a different level. We're not making the borders up. At the end of the day, the people who's going to stay in the Dutama side versus the people who's going to stay in the non-Dutama side or Dutama pretender are not the same segment of people, not the same category of people. And they are willing to pay a completely different premium to stay in this particular area. The variance of a 1-bedroom in proper Dutamas, right, versus a 3-bedroom in a non-proper Dutamas, just 5 minutes away, is just outstanding. That's point number 1, right? So point number 2 here, remember I talked about new versus old? LB, what was the number of the 1-bedroom unit currently renting at Solaris Dutamas, despite it's completely on top of the mall? You go downstairs in your pajamas, it's Publica already. How much is the price point for 1-bedroom rental today?
It's about 2,003 on average.
So you are comparing a 3,005 1-bedroom in Solaris Park, which is new, versus 2,003. So again, that reflects roughly about a 20% premium, which is why when you buy super prime, you buy at the best address, you normally get the best rental. I think when Sean bought in Mont Kiara Prime, right, and a lot of people were wondering, right, at a 900 ringgit per square foot, are you an idiot to buy that property? And are we an idiot at Parkcap to go and buy something at 900 ringgit per square foot in Jalan Kiara? Now, obviously, what people do not know, because we had the data back then, that we are able to buy 900 ringgit per square foot because there was already a completed transaction in Arcoris Mont Kiara going for about 1,001. So we know we are buying at 20% below median. And on top of that, we believe that we had the better location because we had the mall downstairs. We also have a rooftop pool, which means our view is completely much better compared to Akri. The experience of ownership, again, guys, in tier 1 area, when you buy the best property in tier 1, is very different, right? You cannot use a local mentality because you're not going to pay a 25 ringgit in a Selma. And a lot of people will be wondering, who rents for 3,500? Sean, how much do you rent your 1+1 bedroom?
5,000.
So guys, this is a proper tier 1. Again, this area, the money mentality is very different. There's a reason for it. The data is very, very clear. So again, new property will always have a premium versus old. When you buy a proper tier 1, and just because the tier 2 is nearby by 5 minutes, it doesn't mean shit. Because it's completely different set of people. It's just 5 minutes away. Bukit Bintang dengan Pudu pun 5 minutes away, guys. Kampung Baru dengan KLCC pun 5 minutes away. So which is why we always try to highlight, number 1, you have to compare tier versus tier, and then new versus old. Those are the things that you need to understand before you buy new. So when people tell you 5 minutes to Publica, it means nothing. Just make sure you pay a local price point. You don't pay international price point. So this is basically a heat map, right? It will tell you the demand of Airbnb. So it's a very expensive software that we subscribe to. It will tell you what is the average occupancy rate in the area, how much is the rental rate. It will even tell you which listing, which operator that is doing so well and which operator is doing terribly bad, basically. So it's that level of insight. The conclusion here, the Airbnb model or the short stay model is not going to work in the North Kiara, Segambut, Duta North area. The demand as of today has always been in the Dutama side. If you can look at it here, there's only a lot of high purple dots, right? So it's basically Mont Kiara and Dutama side. So if you can see here, the one Dutama top, I suspect that one looks like Arte lah. If you go back to the chart that LB shared, what is interesting about Arte here is that the long-term rental for RT is actually quite terrible, right? The rental room rate, right, for long-term rental for RT is only as low as 1,006 all the way to 2,000, which to me is not great because majority of the people who are buying RT last time, they bought about 430,000 to about 450,000 minimum price point. So RT doesn't do very well on long-term rental, which again, if you have been following this particular conversation now in the last 2 hours, we all come to the same conclusion. Arte somehow not so nice for long-term stay, but for Airbnb, is quite unique. And there are properties, for example, if you look at Solaris Park, for example, the room rental is horrible. So the model for tier one, right? So what we discovered also in tier one, so this is a very important thing, right? For tier one area, room rental often don't do very well. Sean has got a 1+1 bedroom in Prime Mont Kiara lah. The room rental rate there, if you do room rental, maximum you can get 4,000. Today he's renting to one single tenant 5,000. So again, this is tier one. In tier two, room rental normally does a lot better than tier one, which is why when we explain, when you buy a property, you have to have multiple rental options that can get to break even. If you are talking about properties in Mont Kiara, if, for example, in Dutamas, if you are looking at the proper tier one, the long-term rental seems to be better. Now, if you are looking to buy a property in Dutamas area for old property, try not to pay more than 700 ringgit per square foot with exception of Solaris Dutamas. Kenapa exception? Sebab it's on top of a mall. So when your property is on top of a successful mall, you command a premium. So which is why again, Iherng is very happy lah, right? Because he bought something on top of the latest, hottest mall in the whole of Mont Kiara, right? And he bought it at 20% below median. So Iherng is a very happy guy, right? Menyesal ke beli 2 unit je, Iherng?
Tak cukup kidney, tak cukup
Oh,
ginjal.
tak apalah. Anyway, I also regret only buying 4. So anyway, it's okay, it's fine. So we all have our regrets. Then for old property in the non-Dutamas area, right, you shouldn't pay above 550 ringgit per square foot. For Dutamas, room rental makes very little sense if you are paying above 700 ringgit per square foot. If you are paying above 700 ringgit per square foot and you buy a decent property, just rent out the whole damn unit, you're going to get a lot more. Like I said, a 1-bedroom unit in Solaris Park is above 3,500. It's crazy shit in tier 1. If you are looking to do short-term rental and if people trying to sell you short-term rental bullshit in non-proper Dutamas area, so you know now already it's a bullshit statement lah guys. So it's not, you know it's not going to work. It's very unlikely to work lah. Right? You could have only 1 unit saja, that only 1 unit do it, then okay lah, you've got an exception. But as a general rule, it doesn't work. From a new property point of view, there's only 2 properties today that is selling below median, right? Below median. On the Dutama side, Solasta is the only one selling below median, properly below median. And while Tuan is also one of the property which is selling at 5 to 10% below median. Solasta is about 20% below median.
So after the entire session for like, I think from 10 to 2:30 a.m., from 10 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., I was very tired. My eye was all puffy already. But I got really excited because there were a lot of proven data points to be tied along with all the rules and theories that we were discussing about the main difference between old and new, tier 2 and tier 1, short-term stay, long-term stay, the difference in target audience. Is that a difference between having a mall downstairs, between not having a mall downstairs? Some projects are meant for long-term, some are meant for short-term stays. Then how do you formulate the price per square feet? And what's the right price if I want to buy this project? It's just a fabulous session in my opinion. And they kind of requested me to be the fixed host moving forward, so I'm excited for it because I have access to all the data like this. Hopefully they let me share videos like this again. But ultimately I just want to share all this, so for those who are really eyeing on the new projects, for example the one that we covered in Segambut Tuan Heritage, or you are eyeing in Dutamas, you are looking for an investment property, these are the criteria of research, the amount of research and the intensity of research. Some people just research Go property portal, oh, I know already. They didn't even go to the site, they didn't even walk about, they don't even know what's coming up, what's the strategy and things like that. So I am very concerned. This is how we do it. This also explains why it's just easy for me to recommend them for a lot of people who are time poor. If you are just excelling in job 9 to 5, you are just hustling, then after that you will need to serve your families and things like that. Where got time to do all the research, right? That's also me. And my benefit is my job involves property and I do not have the time to do intense research work like them. They have a dedicated team doing research only. The thing about it, sometimes when he's explaining things, it's a bit boring because it's all data. There's no many things that you can argue about. This is me being a little bit rebellious last time. Hey, you say one ma because you sell ma, right? But no, all numbers are there clearly indicating. So it's very interesting, especially if you're a fan of property, you're an investor for real estate. And I guess that's all for this episode. So this is a very new segment that they are doing. I am not too sure how long more or how many more episodes that they are doing. Just whenever they want to do something, they will call me, hey, this Sunday you're free, let's do it. So that is how the format of schedule right now. If you want to know more about when you can join the live stream of this, it's a bit long, but the great thing about joining it is you get to put in your questions directly and the team of panel will answer them directly, which includes me lah. If not, there's always a replay in their channel, and I hope to do this again because this is just awesome. And then when I put up theories, this is theories plus results. Awesome. And I guess that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys like it. See you on the next one. Ciao.